Hey boys and girls, so we're back at it again here. We're going to play with some Volkswagen heads. This is a stock single port. Going to port and polish it. It's got a little damage in the chamber here from, I have no idea what. Probably got dropped or something. And that should not be a problem because we are going to be porting some of those areas out. But, I don't know if you can see, let me see if I can put the flash on, maybe that will turn. Okay. So, that's what the stock port looks like. There is no valve guides in these right now. See? Now, there's like a big, huge wall inside these guys. Right here for the valve guide to hit. Can you guys see that? Maybe I can. Sorry for the angles. Right here is like a solid wall. Blocks off a good chunk of the port on these old single ports. Like, say the air's coming in, boom, and then it rides out, and this is about the center of the port or more. So we're going to shape that. Do some work to the chambers. If you're going to do very much anything, underneath the bowl, this is the bowl, is this turn in this area right underneath the valve seat. Cleaning that up. Same thing over here. On the exhaust is a lot better, but it still has a lot of this guide boss protruding out, especially in this area here. So we're going to trim down some of this and over on that side right there. And then the short side radius on this side, round that off, but not try and take a lot of material out because there's not much material under the seat here. And I've seen before, and done it before, is that people will get in there and they'll take a lot of material out and then the seat will move. On the top side, not a whole lot you can do. We're going to clean up over here on both sides. We're going to try and get this port straightened out over towards the bolt. And over here you can see it kind of like sticks right out in the middle of nowhere. We're going to shave that all off. I know this head looks really moldy, but it's not. It's just the light on the camera. And so that's what we're looking at right now. We're going to try and do a lot better than that. You can see after a little bit of work, we're already straightening the port out. And we're working our way down in there. Alright, so we've did the intake port. As you can see, let me get my little pointer. See if this helps. As you can see, we remove a good chunk of the guide boss. We've also raised the roof of the port up in here and over here, because this used to come straight in and then turn after the valve guide. So you can kind of see there what we took out. It's about straight. And then we didn't really touch any of the center divider. I see people make these things into a point, but you got to remember the air cannot make a turn very well. So I just kind of leave that like it is. And as you can see, there's some areas here where my cutter caught. That's just all that is. Same thing on this side. Valve guide boss is pretty much removed. And over here, let's get this. So another thing is, from stock, this wall over here has a lot of material in it. And you can come through here and take some of this out. And just get, that way when this valve has the guide in there, now that you open this up a little bit, it's going to let air and fuel over to this side and come out this side of the valve. Because it's pretty choked off on this side, factory. This side, I don't think it shows up very well, but we did a lot over here to get this side to come out. You can see the port is more straightened over in this area and in this area. And we also radiused this side and cleaned up the floor. Sorry for my shakiness, and sorry that the camera doesn't adjust very well. So next, I can either do my exhaust valves or the chamber. I'll probably do the exhaust valves side because there's not much to do here. Just go through here and take these lips out. There's a lip right here. It's hard to see, but there's a machining mark right there. There's one right here, and then profile the guide boss down. Not want to remove it, just take a lot of it out. And then the lip on this side, we'll just flapper wheel that. And then we're going to come in here and start working on the chambers. Alright, exhaust port time. So, what we're going to do is, here's the guide boss right in this area. I'm going to profile this down. And then we're going to radius this edge right here. I'm not going to try and really remove much material, just put a radius on that. That's a pretty sharp lip. There's also a sharp lip right there. Sorry, there we go. It's hard to see on the camera, but there's a lip right there. They machine in through here and then catch the port. So there's a transition from this machining area to where the actual port is. I want to widen the port in this area, kind of make a D. We're not going to really increase the overall size. We might go a little bit bigger, but we're not going to go crazy. Just try and make it, when you go around the curve, you can go wider out and get more area and still keep the velocity up. That's what we're trying to do, is keep velocity up here. So anyways, we're not going to go crazy. We're going to profile this right there. This one looks like it's a little bit profiled already. Not as good as we want. I'm going to definitely get up in this area here and profile it. You can see there's a casting lip right here from where they stopped machining. We're going to take care of that. And then after that, we'll come in the chambers, and we're not going to go out too far to the board line because this thing's going to take a stock bore. And I don't know if you can see right there, that's where the cylinder sits. So there's only like 2 millimeters before you hit the cylinder on the side here. Now, if this was boarded for like a 90.5 or bigger, I'd definitely unshroud the valve a lot more on this side. But our hands are tied right here for the bore size. So we're going to definitely come out here and take some of this out. Same thing on the top. Take some of this out, bring it up in this area, try and gain some more flow. So anyways, let's get to work. Alright, tech tip. WD-40, spray a little bit on your cutter, and that'll keep up the flutes from getting clogged up with the aluminum, especially if you're using the multi-crosshatch carbides that are made for steel. You're going to have to use a lot of this every now and again. Clean your end with some WD-40, and that'll keep it from clogging up. So we're going to get in here and start grinding out some of the exhaust port here. Okay, so hopefully you can see what I've done here. See, there's this side I have not touched yet, and as you can see, there's like a step here, there's a wall. This area is like flat, straight up and down, and this area here, right behind it, has been machined in from when they cut the valve seat. They counterbored in here to make a step for the valve seat. So they tried from the factory knowing they needed to get some flow. So they've, you know, when they cut out the inside of the seat here, they cut it out a little, they put a cutter in here and cut into a certain spot, and it stops right around here. Alright, so there was a lip right here. So we're blending the transition in here from that lip, and then we're taking out some of that wall and making it a nice gradual radius, meaning turn, to go up and over the valve guide boss. We're not taking the valve guide boss out, we're just radiusing it up and over, and we're making a smooth transition so that when this comes in through here, it will flow nicely, kind of like a mandrel bent pipe. Let's think of it that way. So it will come in through here, flow up over and around this valve guide boss a lot smoother, because what will happen is it will come in here and hit this wall and cause turbulence, and turbulence reduces flow. So that's how we did it on the top. Maybe we can show the stock. It's really hard with the lighting, I'm sorry. But you can see right here, there's like a wall right there. Like here's a nice smooth part of the port, has transition, and then it just stops right there. Alright? So that's what we're trying to do. We're trying to get this all right here to be able to make this nice smooth blend. Alright, so it's coming, it's kind of flat and straight, and then it drops off. See how it drops off right there? That's because this is a different area. This has got a nice smooth gradual radius back here on the port, and then it just kind of stops. And they put material in here to support this guide boss. And we want to keep as much as we can, but we don't want to have the restriction. So we got to radius this down through here and profile the guide boss a little better than what the factory did. Or like I say, we're not going crazy on the exhaust ports, especially on a single port. The exhaust port flows as good as the intake, so we don't want to get carried away, but we also don't want to leave a restriction. So anyways, let's get back to it. Alright, so here we go. Not the prettiest. I'm not a professional porter, but we're not worried about pretty. We're worried about actual, if it works or not. So anyways, the tip of my cutter always makes little divots here when I try and get around in here. It always happens. And I don't have a good enough cartridge roll to try and get that out. Anyways, what I've done is stock is over here, except for the dents. So the stock has, I don't know, probably about 4 or 5 millimeters between the valve seat and the wall. Over here we didn't really increase that much, maybe another millimeter or so. But we did do, because of the cylinder bore, we don't want to go into the cylinder bore. So what we did was, on the bottom side of the non-plug side head, we've laid it back. Actually went down and then laid this back also. Same thing at the top. If you look over here, it's pretty much just as wide as this is, and then it kind of has like a slight layback to it at the very top of it, but that's actually not where the valve lift would be even stock. But they are trying to get the air from the chamber, from the head and chamber, in this way. So what we've done over here is we've moved that up, and we've pretty much tilted it all back and brought it over and cleaned up the plug housing area. Took a little bit of material out of here above the plug to kind of just make it all sweep together. And the same thing on the intake. We've moved it up and laid it back. And then, like I say, we didn't go too much on the side here. If this thing was boarded for a bigger motor, bigger cylinder, we would go over here, and there would be some flow gains by cutting into this. Just with a 1600, you don't have very much to do with there. Then over here, we laid this back on the non-plug side also and blended it in. As you can see in the exhaust port, we profiled the guide boss, and we took some material out of this wall over here, because this actually is encroaching into the port. So we did that, and we made a nice smooth transition up above the guide boss, profiled the guide boss down, and we did the same thing on the bottom. Nice smoother transition. If you notice, there's no bumps, there's no squared edges here, it's all smoothed out. Let's look at the exhaust port on a stocker, and you can see, whoa, sorry about that, boys and girls. You can see there's this big squared off area right here, and you can see a lip right here. So we took all that out, we radiused the side over here on this side, and this is pretty much as you can really do over here, especially on a single port. Like I say, you don't want to make the exhaust flow more than the intake, which is very easy to do because the exhaust port actually is more efficient in a design wise. But we took out the wall up here, alright, and we cleaned up the port. So that's what the stock one looks like. That's kind of how the stock intake looks also, but the wall is bigger. It goes from like right there all the way up to the side of the valve. So recap on that. We took all that out because right here would be a wall coming almost straight down. So we profiled over the top of the guide boss, and we profiled along the bottom of the guide boss. Also this wall over here, we took a lot of material out of here to actually make the transition. And that's really what you're trying to do, is make smooth transitions. We're not trying to make necessarily things larger, you're trying to make the transition a better transition. Also, we smoothed out, come on now, smoothed out this side over here and profiled it in. And we did not, I've seen people make these into blades over here. We just smoothed this out. We did not, this divider, because once again you got to remember, air does not like to turn. So, you know, would an exhaust that goes like that be efficient? Or would you rather have a header that does this? You know? So we're trying to go for this, not that. Alright, it's amazing. You can think about an exhaust and look at it and say, boy, that's bad if it's just like a T-squared piece, but when it comes to porting, people kind of think the opposite. They don't really think about that. They just think a bigger hole, we need more air. That's not what we're really going for. So this is a little home porting job on our little 1600 single port. You can do the same things are basically for the dual port. You just don't have as big as wall around the guide boss, but you're trying to do the same thing. Get it profiled around the guide boss. Match the intake ports. If it was a dual port, you'd be trying to gasket match the intake port. So as you can see where the washer is, there's nothing sticking out over it. Alright, so that's what you're trying to do, is you're going to lay a gasket up there. I have a video on gasket matching. But that's about it there, boys and girls. So get out there and don't be afraid to try this. Try it on a junk head if you want first. On a dual port, you can grind through over by the bolt hole over here. I'll give you that warning, alright? So if you try and go too far over where the stud is right there, you will cut through. That is actually kind of a thin area. So you got to get some of that out, but don't go too crazy, or else you'll be getting another head. So a junk head for dual ports, it's easy to start with. The single ports, you'd be hard pressed to cut through these things in some places. So, you know, these are pretty good. You know, if you're going to try and do one and not practice on one, I'd try single ports first, if you have them. So anyways, this thing going to need guides, it's going to need a valve job. Also on that note, try and stay away from the seats. Alright, and by the seats, we mean these, right here, okay, in case some people don't know. These have a precision cut angle on them. This one's going to get a valve job anyway, so I'm not so worried about that. But if you're trying to take a motor that was running in home porting heads, no matter if it's V8, anything, stay away from the seats. Alright, you don't need special tools. I'm doing this with a cheap electric die grinder, Harbor Freight. Doing it with cheap Harbor Freight burrs. The one thing I'll say about the grinder is that thing is on or off. You'll need a variable speed controller. Harbor Freight sells that also. But the air die grinder is a lot better. It has a lot more control and infinite adjustment, especially with a regulator on it. So you don't need specialty tools. You can get the carbides from Harbor Freight. You can get sanding rolls from Harbor Freight. You can get it from Goodson. Goodson also is a cylinder head supplier. You know, you can order all this stuff online. You can order it from Summit Racing. There's a lot of places you can get that stuff. You don't need to be an expert. Every little bit you do will help from stock. Alright? Unless you go and crazy big and make a huge Godzilla-sized port. Like I say, that's not what you're trying to do. What you're trying to do is get the port to transition well. Okay? So anyways, boys and girls, the next thing I got to do is got to CC the heads. I'll have to get valve guides and valves in it before I can do that. That's the next thing you'll want to do, is make sure that you match the chambers, all the 4 of them. Stock was plus or minus like 1 cc, so try and get in that realm. If you're trying to get really high compression and perfect, try and make them match exactly. So anyways, don't forget to like and subscribe. This video is running long, sorry for that. But I figured I'd show you guys some home porting on a set of single port heads for Volkswagens. The information transfers over to pretty much any vehicle. It's the same idea. So get out there and get your projects done. Don't forget to like and subscribe, and check the playlist for other videos. Thank you.